It depends on where the pointer, or where the word is pointing to and where the person is at.
Hmm.
So, for example, if somebody is in witness consciousness and we say mind, it might be different than if somebody is at that third level and we're saying mind, right? And
Yeah.
then maybe they've purified the mind of ego
Hmm.
and they're just attention. Well, in that third state, attention is often non-localized, so it doesn't even feel
Right.
like it's coming from that specific place. But in the intermediate stage, in the observer role, it's going to feel like the location, oftentimes it's going to feel like the location is behind my eyes. I can't speak for everybody, but
Yeah.
so it kind of depends where the person's at and what pointer helps them understand where they're at and then transcend that. But that's where you have to know what the teacher is pointing to.
Hmm.
So after learning some of this, now I can read the spiritual books and be like, okay, in this book, mind means this, but in that book,
Right.
mind means that.
Yeah. Well,
So,
I think that's, it's so interesting because, listening to your YouTube videos, like, I don't know, I hope this isn't offensive or not or anything, but like I would say it's an intermediate teaching in terms of some of this stuff. So it like helped me with that differentiation process along the way where I was like, oh, this is mine. These like pieces are here. And then when I was like, wait, why aren't these teachers talking about these differentiated pieces? And then I was like, nobody's talking about this. And now I'm also like, maybe they are. And like
maybe
it's
they are.
more subtle, but it's like, I guess if somebody was to like progress through this process to like a higher level, a more advanced place, and then they're using that word mind to 10 students, it's going to mean six different things. And
Yeah,
so how do you then teach it is like, I think sometimes that's an interesting thing with some of these people who have maybe like transcended to a certain place and then they're trying to teach it, but it doesn't necessarily like it's hard to teach, right? Because it's so much more than a concept in words.
yeah, absolutely. So I might be focusing quite a bit on the intermediate stage on my channel because I went I've gone to the third stage so many times,
Mhm.
just into bliss hundreds and hundreds of times, and then fallen out and didn't learn anything. Well, this is before I was like rigorously studying this stuff.
Sure.
And so it was just I was just having awakening experiences all I mean, started when I was 23. I had no self for 2 months, and I didn't even realize it happened until the day I came out of it, and I was like, "Wait, what? What just
Oh,
happened there?
wow.
There was no me." Like, that was the beginning of I was like, "How do I
Sure.
get back there?" That
Right.
was amazing, right? That's when your journey starts. But, it's it's that I had to go back, because I wanted to have the wisdom of that, and it's not about having an experience, it's about knowing who you are, and Ryan would say, if you're gonna choose one, know who you are. Who cares about the experience?
Yeah.
When you're not having an awakening experience, you wanna intellectually know who you are so that, you know, you are solid in your identity, whether there's an experience here or not, because experiences come and go. They can never be who you are. You can
Hmm.
never attach your identity to an experience. So
Hmm.
in that third level, that experience is like you're just one with everything. And I think a lot of people can experience that level and not learn anything also,
Hmm.
so oftentimes you want to understand, and we talk about learning about these different pieces, but then wanting to integrate them later on. And maybe I can speak to that a bit. So
Hmm.
when I'm breaking things down, I'm consciously like, oh, okay, so all of this stuff that I thought was me. Okay, let me look at what is this me? Okay, so this is mind, this is ego. Are either of those me? And so what's happening is instead of the ego blindly identifying itself with all of these things, suddenly we bring some awareness to this and we're like, okay, yeah, this aspect, this mind, it kind of has these traits. Okay, and then ego kind of has these traits. So I'm bringing more and more awareness.
Mhm.
And then I'm going to that second level of I can't be any of this stuff. I'm the observer. And so ego's becoming smaller. There's more presence here. And then that third stage, if there's no ego, then the you who is identifying with the nothing and the everything isn't ego anymore. And that's the integration. I mean, there's another way of looking at integration with which is the somatic integration, the emotional integration work. But in this sense, it's not like, okay, I split all these things apart and then I hope to bring them all together. It's like a different aspect is access
Yeah.
and brought forward consciously and sees the truth
Mhm.
that it's all integrated. But it's there's not an ego identified with all these pieces that have been integrated,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
No, I think so. I mean, because the ego's like always trying to figure it out, right? It
Yeah,
always is trying to understand and make sense of, and like at least for me, and I think a lot of people like vigorously trying to have all the pieces in their place and know what's going on. And like it can only know like a tiny, tiny, tiny fraction of what's going on. And
yeah,
so even all of that is just an exercise in context to then go beyond
yes,
the ideas. And so, I think we were talking before you asked me about like teachers, and I think like I mentioned Alan Watts, and I would say he probably had a good idea of all the pieces and all the things, but then couldn't sort of go beyond that into what emerges in that conscious being of all things, in that space. And so, yeah, even if we figure it all out, there's a non-doing step of stepping into that space, or the space steps into us, I guess maybe might be more accurate.
yeah. I think it's like just sincerely being on the path and doing the work because we can dissociate into those states. I
Right.
dissociated into those states so many times, but to have like a peaceful, like if I'm doing this for freedom and for peace,
Hmm.
there's a way to consistently cultivate that, consistently meet our traumas with compassion, consistently remember my identity and who I am, even in the hardest moments where it really
Hmm.
feels like I'm this feeling or what someone else thinks about me, and just, okay, keep coming back to the basics. They'll take you all the way. But,
Yeah.
some teachers will be like, Well, just be," and there's nothing wrong with I had a teacher once, a couple that wanted me to throw my mind out.
Mm.
And I saw what happened to them. And one of them, I saw him lose his mind. And
Mm.
that's where my teacher Ryan now, he's like, well, he's always said this from the moment I met him. He's like, "What? Like, you need your mind. We need our mind. We wouldn't be able to communicate right now without our minds. We want
Yeah.
to throw out ego." And that's where the teachers who are conflating mind and
Yeah.
ego, like that pointer, like really needs to be stressed, where people are not thinking, "Oh, just be," because I could throw out my mind and then I'd be in bliss. Right. So then it's like, oh yeah, I'm at that third level, but that wasn't stable. That was
Yeah.
not reproducible. That wasn't peaceful, and that did certainly told me nothing about my identity. It was
Right.
experience chasing.
Yeah, I think so. And one of the things like the therapist I work with, she talks about is like you have to transcend and include. Like you have to bring your mind. You have to like have these pieces are a part of this human experience. We can't do it without the mind or do it without the body and do it by dissociating. It can be a short vacation, but ultimately, if our hope in this path is to kind of get closer to that place of that experience, yeah, and being in that way, it's got to like include. It can't be, even like I know there's books like the ego is the enemy and things like that, and I have a hard time like being okay with that because it's part of us. I would kind of agree, like we don't maybe ever totally get rid of it, but it becomes really small and is like sitting way in the back seat rather than driving.
Yeah.
And you know, to rebalance that sort of power and trust in the oneness and like be able to see and be led by our hearts and our higher minds, like we have to almost like love the ego into that place and accept it more than it be the enemy and crush it with will.
Yeah, love and accept it, but don't feed it.
Yeah, exactly.
But sometimes we need a certain portion of it where maybe we still are not in a place where we have the capacity to feel through what would be underneath it if we did surrender it. Maybe I'm
Yeah.
in a really stressful job and this is not the time to surrender my ego that is
Right.
helping me survive.
Yeah.
But say like I'm in a 10-day silent meditation retreat and I've got nothing else to do and I can
Hmm.
slowly, see what's underneath it. Like, okay, if this wasn't here, what would I have to feel? And then if I can, in a
Hmm.
titrated way, just a little at a time, feel some of that, not all at once so that it could be re-traumatizing, but just as much as I
Yeah.
could handle, take a break, let it integrate, come back to it. The ego will just melt. The part of the ego that was helping me not feel that emotion will just slowly melt. I won't feel as defensive about it because there's nothing
Hmm.
left to defend if I've released that emotion.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes perfect sense. And I think that idea of like, well, we need it sometimes is important too, because I think I was attached to this idea of like, I just need to like open myself up and just stay there. But the reality of being a human is it's more of a oscillating, open and closed. And there's, conscious work that goes into that. There's other conditions outside of our consciousness that help with that too. And that's just like our humanity. And so
Yeah.
accepting that and knowing like, oh, sometimes I'm gonna get an email that's a hard problem to solve after a night of bad sleep, and I'm gonna drink too much coffee, and then I'm gonna, be
Yeah.
in that state where I'm not, making like the biggest, most clear choices at times. And so
And it's
being
okay.
gentle. Yeah.
It's all okay. Yeah, we just keep meeting ourselves with compassion over and over again and just observing it. If it's something we want to shift, we're just bringing the light of observation to it and it slowly can shift on its own. But just that I don't need myself to shift in order to love myself or feel worth, just having that
Hmm.
inherent, like no matter what, that intrinsic worth and that intrinsic acceptance, that radical self-acceptance of who we are heals so
Hmm.
much.
Yeah, I mean, I think getting to that point is like it's kind of the ultimate gift we can give ourselves. And from my experience, it's very tough to get there. It's very tough to one, like confront in the deepest way that I might believe I'm not good enough, from however many months old or maybe earlier, or that I am bad, or that I'm disgusting, or these things that can be just like in our cells almost from these like very early ages, to confront that and then to like love ourselves and accept ourselves through that, is it's quite a journey and probably not for everyone in a lifetime.
Yeah, but to see that it can't even be true, right?
Yeah,
Because where are those things? Like show me good or bad.
right.
Like what are those? They're just concepts in the mind. And it's like, okay, so whenever we hear those things, it could be helpful to be like, where did I first hear that?
Yeah.
Instead of immediately identifying with it, that it must be true because this, no, like, where did I first hear that? So, okay, so that is just a piece of conditioning I've absorbed somewhere because my brain is a
Hmm.
receiver and it's like just super arbitrary
Yeah.
and it means nothing about me. And I don't have to,
Hmm.
identify and hold on to it. And all I have to work through is the emotions that I felt because I believed that in the past at some point when I was a child. And it feels really strong, but as long as I can disprove that it's true, then, I can release a lot of that and not
Yeah.
spin.
Yeah. No, I think that makes a lot of sense. And you make it sound easy.
Yeah, it's really, I mean, I don't want to like discourage people like, oh, it's going to be super,
Yeah.
super hard. But my path has been super, super hard.
Yeah.
But super, super worth it.
Yeah.
And maybe it won't be hard for,
Yeah.
whoever might be listening. We're all at different places. Byron Katie, she just fell into, she had a really hard life, but then she just woke up one day.
Yeah.
I mean, she didn't have to do anything. That was amazing. And then other people, were in the trenches and,
Yeah.
30 years, 40 years, but we're always, I think we're just meeting ourselves where we're at,
Hmm.
you know, and learning how to be gentle with ourselves. And sometimes we just have to keep practicing that over and over because the conditioning could be so harsh, and we're just
Hmm.
learning how to open up to self-love.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that is a good point. Like, because I think I mentioned before about like my experience with ayahuasca, and I'm like, this is how everyone has to do it. And, there was a time not long ago even where I was like, this is what everyone has to do. I feel like, okay, like as I went into this work, it was like, okay, I have to like weed out every conditional, like
Yeah,
condition for being okay, for being open to love, to feel safe. And, as all of those come out, then there's like a lot less flow of that energy because I'm, kind of starved because I'm not feeling safe and trusting enough to be just, the oneness that I am at my core. And yeah, I got to a point where it was like the hardest part of that, where I'm like, this is not for everyone. No one should do this, unless they really want to, because it's quite challenging, but that isn't the case for everyone. That everyone's path and journey, it's as different as there are people, I think. And so yeah,
mhm,
it is a good point to make, is like it doesn't have to be that hard for everyone. And for some people it is. And similar to you, I think like mine has been really challenging. And recently I was in like a deep meditation, and I was like, if it was like this for the rest of my life, would I keep doing it? And it was just absolutely yes. Like it is so rich and like rewarding and interesting, and just like it's so exciting to explore the depths of the human experience.
absolutely. We're here to experience, and I don't mean to invalidate anyone's suffering. Like, oh my
Mhm.
gosh, I've really been in some very dark places, and that's why I do this work. I think
Mhm.
anyone who does this work is probably attracted to it because they needed to help heal themselves, but um looking back, and my friend Aloshan, who is Ryan's other student, in my worst moment, he told me, he's like, when you get to the other side of this, you're going to look back and say even this was worth it.
Yeah.
And when I did get to the other side of it, I said, I'm so grateful for it. I not at the time it happened, but wow, that was if all of this suffering that I've gone through is so I can know who I am, and
Hmm.
so I can feel the peace and liberation that comes with that. And I'm still
Yeah.
on my journey, just to be very transparent, but
Hmm.
it's been, you know, an incredibly fulfilling journey because every year gets better and more peaceful, and there's more freedom.
Hmm.
And so if suffering has been my path, because it is the path for most people, it's the
Hmm.
path
Yeah.
toward peace and freedom, then I'm grateful for it now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I mean, I don't think I'm to the other side yet, and my perspective has already like really shifted a lot, even in the last year, of just like I am so grateful for it. And I also became aware of this like attachment to it. It's like if I am to let go of suffering, let go of this like pain, will I continue? Will I keep learning, And it's like it can also be easy to like stay attached and identify with that, to keep ourselves, well, I'm not there yet. It's got to be hard. I got to keep
yeah,
learning, And it's
yeah,
like, oh, yeah, there's that sneaky ego like
trying to
coming in the
survive.
side door. Yeah.
Trying to be like, "You still need me. It's gotta be hard. It's gotta be like this."
Yeah, I know.